How many people in the room remember a world where there was no social media?
Sorry? What was the question?
How many people in the room remember the world where there was no social media? Now keep your hand up if you remember the world with no internet. It's more than half. It was a different world back then, wasn't it? I remember when I was a kid and my dad used to bring the whole family to see our grandparents every second week, and the car trip there, which was 1 hour, was pure hell. So my mother used to listen to Radio 4, awful opera music playing, and I used to put my head against the window like that and watch the scenery go by for 1 hour. And what I do remember about those trips is the amount of billboards that I would see. Billboards everywhere as advertisers tried to grab our attention. There were billboards for the local beer, which was Banks's Brewery. There were billboards for the local department store. There was billboards telling you what new cars were around, which I think back then would have been the Austin Allegro or Morris Marino or something. It was terrible. The world has changed a lot. Because now, when kids go to see their grandparents, they don't have to listen to the music of their parents. They have Spotify, they put their headphones on, and they listen to what they want. And they're not looking at billboards. What do you think kids are looking at when they're in the car driving along? They're looking at their phone. And advertisers don't need to rely on billboards anymore, because highly advanced algorithms will put adverts on the cell phone in front of the child. If they go to a football match, it'll probably be adverts of football boots and sports stuff. If it's a little girl who's just watched Frozen, which is probably an old film now, but there's going to be little princess outfits and tiaras and magic wands and things. But the point is that social media and internet advertising is so highly advanced now, it's an absolute dream for anybody who's in marketing. You can really target the audience that you want. And as soon as it develops, companies and individuals have realised they can actually build a community of followers. You can build a community of people who are interested in you because of who you are and what you do. You can build a community of people who are interested in your products or your service. And we call it social media because it's social. It's not just media, which is one-way traffic. Now it's two-way traffic. Your followers, your clients can send you messages, you can reply, you can really get to know the people who are following you and understand the demographics, which enables you to market even better. Now, if you're an individual, such as me, it's relatively easy to build a community. Many of you know I have a YouTube channel. I consistently put myself out there presenting yachts. If people like me, they stay. If they don't like me, they move on, probably to alcoholic or multi-stars. And usually I have to leave you a very rude message for me on my YouTube channel. But for an individual, you can do that. You can build a relationship with viewers and with followers. For a big faceless corporation, it's more difficult to do that. And so large corporations, we've found, started to use a new phenomenon, which is called the influencer. I'll give you a great example of that. Probably a few years ago, many of you will remember a young guy who was not from a particularly wealthy family or not particularly talented in anything particular, but he had a formula where he tried to do something in the most difficult possible way. So, for example, he'd take a car and he'd try to get in through the sunroof or through the window, and then he'd just walk up to it, he'd open the door, and he always did this. Does anybody tell me I'm not the only person who's seen him? He was hugely popular, so popular that Hugo Boss paid him untold millions to be the face of their brand. Because Hugo Boss themselves don't have a face as such, so they paid him as an influencer. And a more identifiable example, Burgess had a great idea to present some of their yachts on YouTube. They use a YouTuber called NS Yomazan. Now, Ennis has almost 4 million subscribers, and he presents very, very high-end property. So I think he did an amazing walkthrough tour of Nero, he interviewed Tommy Hilfiger, he went through Flag, and it was a very successful idea for them, because as a brokerage, presumably they didn't want to have one person's face, and they could use an influencer to get to contact millions and millions of people who otherwise they wouldn't be able to contact. Now, the good news of that is that we can get attention now for brands and people like never before, and we can target it. The bad news is that when you have platforms that give people attention, it also attracts attention seekers. And I'm sure we've all seen attention seekers at poach shows. There are 9 times out of 10 young girls, usually very pretty young girls, and they want to have their photograph taken on SuperYachts. They usually pout their lips because they can get views. There's no commercial reason for it. They're not going to make any money out of it, but they get a kick out of the attention that social media can provide. But when you have a situation like that, when you can just post something and millions of people will see it, that gives an influencer a certain power. And to quote a very well-known piece of cinematographic literature, Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Like, we laugh because it's a Spider-Man quote, but it's so true, isn't it? With great power comes great responsibility. And if you have that power, you can post something, and a day later, 1 million people have seen it. You have to take that responsibly. And in yachting, it's kind of interesting what's happening at the moment, because bad news always travels quicker than good news. Scandal is always more healing than good news. I'll give you an example. Ocean launch yachts, and we put it on Instagram or on YouTube, and we fact check. And how we fact check? We want to get the exact length. If it's 105 metres and 2 centimetres, we want to put those 2 centimetres in. If the beam is 16 metres and 7 centimetres, we want to put that exactly right. And we post it, and it looks great. It's the launch of a big yacht. But what happens when they need to dismantle a bridge to let the mast through one of their yachts? All of a sudden, social media goes wild. Nobody fact checks about why they have to dismantle the bridge, what the process was, who the owner really is, because at the time nobody really knew who it was. It was all speculation, and sadly there are many, many people in the world who take delight out of the misfortunes of the wealthy, or out of anything that they can point a finger at against the wealthy. It's the same thing whenever a yacht has a fire, whenever a yacht sinks, whenever anything awful happens. If you want to get views on social media, post that. Don't post the good stuff. So I think it's very, very good, very positive, very appropriate that this cluster, there's a discussion about exactly that, about a responsible use of social media. It's here to stay. Everywhere you've got people looking at their phones, they're on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It is a massive influence on humanity today. And if we're going to be using it, we need to have a discussion about how to use it in a wise and responsible manner. So, we have a panel which is really interesting. On this panel, we have 2 people who are really in the brokerage industry. We have Steve Bailey, who I'd invite up here now, who's the Global Marketing Director of IYC, who are very active in social media. Myself, I now work with the Marine Max Super Yacht Division. We have Fraser Yachts and Norfolk & Johnson, and I do my YouTube channel. We have a journalist, Katia Dangorski, the super yacht editor of Boat International, who has a highly respected and extremely successful Instagram page with 150,000 followers. And we have, of course, the great Instagrammer with over 500,000 followers, Matthias Reed, who's Mr. Super Yacht. Now that's interesting in itself, but the thing that impressed me the most about this panel is that the moderator is better known than all of us put together, has more followers than all of us social media put together, is an absolute legend in the industry, and has no social media. In fact, he only just has a website with one single web page. So Espen Oeno will be moderating, and it's going to be a fascinating